Hey everybody, good to be back with you again. So I know that I've spent a lot of time sort of complaining about this editor data file that I'm using and all of the little random and weird things I discovered about it. This video today is not really to throw more dirt on it as much as it is a video to talk about something that I think we all should keep in mind, especially when we're creating stuff for others to use in Football Manager. The purpose of the video is to say that when you create your own editor data file, I would say before you really throw something out for long-term release, you probably should play with it yourself, right? And I'll show you some of the problems that have come up here as we've been playing through with this. So you can see we're in late October 2022. We're done in the schedule with all of that non-conference schedule nonsense and this crazy early seasons tournament. I've said this before, I'll say it again. This non-conference schedule really could have been divided up, these 7 games, into the 7 months of the season. You could have had one game thrown in here, and you could have rearranged the schedule pretty easily so that instead of having a bunch of non-conference games being played at once, you'd have them staggered out a little bit. That would have helped so that when you go to the data hub, see, now I can see information about our teams now that we've played 3 conference games. Before, I couldn't see anything, even though we'd played 10 games beforehand, right? Kind of a problem. It makes it a little bit hard for you to figure out exactly what's going on, right? You can see certain reports on I guess that's other teams' players and stuff like that. You can now see reports on your own players and all of that, which is pretty good, right? But that's one of those things where if the creator had, I don't know, really tested it himself, he probably would have noticed that, oh, if I stagger this out a little bit more, maybe that could have solved the problem. I'll show you another problem that we have. The problem that we have here is in the scouting center. So in theory, I think, be able to sign players who are free agents right now. But as I've said before, we can't buy any players who are foreign players. They have to have a potential ability of 200 to be able to get a work permit, which excludes everybody in the world. Kind of an odd thing to do. Like I said, this is a xenophobic save, and it's one that wasn't ever mentioned in the description of the file. If we go look for players in range, sorry, that is where I wanted to be. We look for players who are unattached. There are no players who are unattached to sign. Even if we're looking for players who are not interested in a transfer, there are no players based in the USA for us to sign, right? If we're looking for players who are on non-contract, there are no players for us to sign, right? This is the problem, right? There is no type of free signing that we can get. Now, if we want, we can find a whole bunch of youth players who would be interested in transfer. They're not a ton, only 294. As you can see, we've been doing scouting on some of them. Most of them are horrible, right? Guys like this guy are probably pretty good, but those are for players who are interested in transfer. If you take that off, then you can get the players from the really big conferences who might actually be willing to come over. It's an issue. It's a problem, right? We could also take a look at, say, players who are on amateur contracts. Oh, but look, there are no players that we can sign, right? Interesting how that works, right? There are like no additional players that we can sign whatsoever anywhere in this database that are based within the United States. Now, I'll tell you this again. I'm only using one editor data file, and that is the editor data file that sets up this NCAA structure. I'm not using anything else. All right, this is not a problem that is caused by, oh, well, we were using some other file and some weird thing happened. No, this is a problem that's caused by the actual structure of the league not being very well thought through. I talked about transfers, right? If we go over here, let's say to competitions into the Mountain West Conference, we go look at transfers, you'll see that we had 8 transfers during the transfer window for all 10 teams. Oh, well, you think that might be because it's of the conference that it is. Let's see, what does the SEC have? They have 4 transfers. Right, 4 transfers in the whole SEC, which has, 10 teams, right? 10 teams. So only 4 transfers for them. The Big Ten had 5, right, out of the, again, 10 teams in the Big Ten. We go up again. The Big 12 had 1. Big 12 has 10 teams, right, because who cares about what the conference is called? They had 1. Pac-12 had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But one of them was a player, Campbell, that we sold over to Arizona State. We didn't actually sell him. We loaned him out, right? Again, look at that. Most of these are loans, right? So you think, oh, well, the way through this is to get a bunch of loans and things will be okay and all that stuff. But no, it's not really going to happen. And anyway, we could go on and on and on and take a look at, the transfer history, for all of these different conferences. But the truth of the matter is that the way that this is set up, because of the transfer restrictions, there are simply no transfers at all to be found, to be heard of, right? which is an issue. That means that everybody is 100% dependent upon the club's ability to recruit young players. Now, as you know, if you played Football Manager before, that means that you're 100% dependent upon your facilities, your youth training, your junior coaching, and of course, as I showed, I think in the video yesterday or the day before, what your head of youth development is like. Now, it's a real problem, though, because you're also really dependent upon your reputation. Let's see if this reputation, is that even listed here anywhere or not. That's a huge, huge problem. Here we go. Reputation is regional for us, right? That's a huge problem because it means that when we try to go sign good players from other teams, they're not going to be willing to sign with us. So if we look up again the SEC, there it is, and we go look up Alabama, and we look just at the club information, yeah, the reputation is going to be continental, right? They're going to be able to easily get the best young players to go over there, and we're going to have absolutely no shot at getting any of their youngsters. So if we're looking at, let's see here, do we have a place where it tells us where their best, hot prospect is? Ben Flint. If we really want to go over and get Ben Flint, we don't have any information about him, I guess we can scout him. We're probably not going to be able to, right? We can take a look here, but we don't have anything. We don't even have an agent that we can talk to find out if he's any good or not, right? This is part of the problem, right? Part of the problem, he must be pretty good if he's got USA caps. But part of the problem, as you can see, is that teams that have strong reputation and can maintain the strong reputation will always be able to get the good young players. And those teams like ours that don't quite have the strongest reputation are going to have a hard time. Now, this is the sort of thing that you would know if you actually sat down and played with it and you said, okay, well, instead of just releasing this file, I'm going to spend some time playing it as a lower league team and seeing if I can actually be promoted and if things matter, right? The problem is that if you don't play with it, if you just sort of assume that everything's fine, then there's stuff that will happen that you don't really understand, right? I guess we have sell-on fees. We can go ahead and get rid of those sell-on clauses, but you know what? It doesn't matter, and I wouldn't look at it because we have plenty of transfer budget. We have tons of money in the bank, and we have plenty of spare wage budget. The reason why we have all of this spare wage budget, spare transfer budget, and so on and so forth is, again, because the economics of the game are screwed up because there are no transfers, right? So, again, this is one of those things that, like, if you are not playing the game, if you've decided to make a file and then you just holiday out 5 years or 10 years or 15 years and you're like, oh, this is interesting and that's interesting, you can post about that on the forums all you want, but it doesn't make a difference. You have to sit down and play it. If you don't play it, you don't know what's wrong. You don't know if there's something wrong. Maybe everything's wrong. In this case, I would say that there are a lot of things wrong with this data file. And, you know, we really, really should pay attention to them. And we probably should work on fixing these by creating some sort of a transfer mechanism so that we can get money out and so that there can be some sort of a switch of players coming in, right? Otherwise, you find yourself stuck. I like the idea. I'm a little bit not sold on the way that the stadiums look, but overall the idea is really good. I think that it's an excellent setup, but the big problem that I have is that without the ability to actually, you know, do any transfers and bring in any foreign players, it gets really, really old, really, really fast. And for me, it's really starting to age now. So in the end, if you are making an editor data file and you're making major changes, my recommendation is that you actually sit down and play with it and play through a save. And especially that you take a lower side and try to build them up and see if it is possible or not. In this particular sense, in this particular case, yes, it is possible, but it's going to be extraordinarily difficult. One of the reasons why is because if you get money from winning competitions, you can't spend it. You can't spend the money anywhere, you know, because the only players you can get are domestic players. You can't take advantage of, you know, the economics of smaller leagues and do other things to sort of take advantage of the situation. You've got nothing. All you have is the domestic stuff that you're playing around with. It becomes pretty boring. Anyway, there's my 10 cents for you today. Talk to you later. Bye.